it as a kind of almost like a validation. Like the doctors like it, so it must be good. But it's encouraging. It's definitely encouraging. And I guess it's more encouraging across the board because attitudes about health are changing globally, and it's about time. Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. And again, welcome. And Dr. Robertson, I thank you very much for coming online to the inaugural, the first and the only time that you've now spoken for the global Zoom call here in Asia Pacific. And I heard a whisper there that you're moving to Australia. Is that correct?
I'd love to. And I won't bore you with the story. I've had opportunities and I look back and go, why didn't I move? Yeah, I'd love to move to Australia.
My friend, we would love to have you down here. I'm sure we could utilize you well. And, you know, we have one of the scientific advisory board members in Malaysia. So you housed in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. I think that would be the perfect location for you to be, you know, residing around the world, because you don't need to live in the UK. Honestly, no, you don't.
I don't. You're right. I'm with you. You've convinced me, Robert. Let me have a word with the wife this afternoon. Yeah.
Dr. Colin, we have gone global, okay? We are live around all social media platforms. And for those people that are listening in on Facebook and other social platforms, please type in the chat line. I want to hear some of the results that you're getting on the balanced oil. Type them in the chat line. So if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, just throw in some comments there about, you know, the comments about what the balanced oil is doing for yourself or that you've seen. I want your own testimonials. I don't want your grandmas, your mothers, your aunties, your uncles, or somebody you know. I need your personal testimonials. Dr. Colin, it is a pleasure to have you online. Look, your resume is too big for me and too long for me to read out. I just want to say it is an honor to have you on the advisory team here at Zenzino, to work with us in the corporate level and to help us take this company to where it really deserves to go. And I can see it becoming one of the largest test-based, not guest-based, nutritional companies in the world. Dr. Colin, could you just do the honors for me and give the people that are listening in, and there's hundreds of people around the world listening in, and guys, don't forget to share it, okay? If you're on one of the socials, share this, get this message out, because we have to tell the world about what Dr. Colin's about to talk about. Can you give me a quick 1 or 2 minute snapshot of just your history? I know you could talk for half an hour just on your own history, but I know a lot of people don't like talking about themselves. Give us the highlights that you believe people need to hear as we go into this conversation.
Thanks, Robert. It's a very, very gracious introduction. And believe me, it's a privilege to be here. It really is, both at Zenzino and speaking to all of you guys. It really does mean a lot. To sum it up, I think, you know, get to the point, I think what makes me rare, if not unique, is that I've spent the past 25 years working from everything from clinical exercise physiology, so being based in a huge, big district general hospital, helping people to recover and overcome cancer, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, you name it, chronic disease, musculoskeletal. That's the area I've operated in, all the way across to helping athletes get ready for the Olympics, Beijing, London, Rio, training people to climb Everest, row across the Atlantic, marathon desab. So everything from the worst possible condition a human can be in, and I do mean that, all the way through to palliative care, right the way across to supporting humans to achieve and accomplish the most outstanding things that humans can possibly, you know, kind of manifest. So that's where I've operated for a quarter of a century. My research interest has always hinged off fatigue and the parameters that create fatigue, both from a disease point of view, nutritional and performance. And to this day, I'm still strategically involved in a lot of health agendas with regards to health innovations, cities changing diabetes. I'm currently a part of the Advanced Clinical Practice Group working with Health Education England. And I've been a part of other kind of global strategies whereby we're trying to encourage people to live better lives. And typically that's through nutrition. I'm a registered nutritionist with the British Dietetics Association. I'm not going to go through all kinds of qualifications and things that I do, but that's kind of, I think, the area I've occupied. But to sum up what I do, I consider myself to be a knowledge broker. And people typically get in touch with me when they say, we want to know more about the truth of this. What's going on? What does the research say? And how should that influence our practice? And that's really where I operate. So I get, historically, I'll get called upon from everything from huge, big sports brands who are doing proof of concept for kit, all the way across to looking at the stuff that I'm really passionate about, which is epigenetics and what positive difference does food make to our health status. So I think I did that in 2 minutes, Robert. That's the kind of highlight reel of what I do. I always find it really difficult to explain what I do because it's not straightforward. I'd love to be able to say I'm a bus driver, and everyone knows what that is. It's hard to describe, but that's an insight.
Fantastic. And Dr. Colin, look, it's just great to know that you've chose a company like ZenZino to actually put your brand and your name to. Could you just give us like a snapshot of that as well? Why ZenZino? Why was it? What made that decision to step across the line and say, I'm going to jump on board with these guys because of what I can see? Just give me that in a snapshot as we go into the conversation.
In a snapshot is because I've spent, again, 25 years criticizing the supplement industry and saying, you have the technology, why don't you produce products that are research informed and morally sound? I've been, I make no bones about it. I've been heavily critical because much of what's out there isn't really any better than anything else. And then I was made aware of ZenZino by a good friend of mine who'd been encouraged to take it for their health condition and was actually interested from a business point of view as well. And I set about debunking it. So I thought, right, I'll go on the website, I'll have a look, I'll tell them why it's rubbish, and then I can go back to life. And I had a look and I had a eureka moment. And I said, these guys are doing it. They are doing it. They have a scientific advisory panel. They have a health advisory panel. They are plugged in globally. They are research informed. They are not making wild, crazy claims. The evidence stacks up. The test procedure stacks up. And I recognize, because when you do what I do, Robert, in a nutshell, you're trying to make a difference. And that sounds a bit evangelical, but it's true. You just think it's the old values of kind of being here and trying to make the world a little bit better. And I've watched health deteriorate on my watch since a child. Things have got worse. And you want to interfere with that and you want to improve it. And I saw a company that had reach, that had impact, and that were person by person, making change easy, making it convenient, and making it profound. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to make that change. I want to inform. I want to be a part of that exciting process of informing how this company does what it does and make people's lives better.
Look, and I think that's the key thing. And myself, same thing 2 years ago when I got that phone call and I dropped over to Norway to have a look at the company. Being in the wellness industry for 21 years and understanding the power of what our job was and what we were trying to achieve to get people better. And then when I did see the test-based nutrition, and I want to talk with you about this balanced test as the #1 priority because I believe this is the game changer. Because we have a marketplace, the Omega category, the wellness platform called the Omega industry, that we can address. There's a lot of people and millions of people around the world consuming Omegas, but I feel now it's our time to hold the Omega industry accountable for the inferior products that have been selling to people for the last 50 years. And just by having the test base and having the balanced test, it can make the difference without us becoming medical advisors. And we as an army of people around the world, that is sharing this incredible device, it allows us to be the person say, hey, just take a test. So talk to me about what your feelings is on that balanced test first up. Tell me why you believe that's the game changer before we talk about the product, because everybody hops on every Zoom and says, I got the #1 number oil in the world. Let's talk about the game changer with the test device first.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a researcher. So I spent half my life in laboratories. In fact, I was the lab director. The job I had before moving to the ZenZino, I was the lab director for the Queen's Laboratories in Greater Manchester, and then the sports science. There's huge multi-million pound building called Bolton One, which has the NHS in it, and we have these sports science labs, and I was the lab director of all that. So looking at genetics and across, so lab-based test procedures, objective tests. You know, never mind what someone tells us, what's really going on. That's the area that I come from. So I always put this the other way: is why don't most of the other providers of omega-3s, fish oil, why don't they do a test? Why, when you go to a really dodgy car lot to buy a car, they don't want you to test drive it? They'll do you a really good deal. I'll sell you cheap. I'm going to knock $1,000 off the price. Just buy it now. Why? Because they don't want you to really know what's happening. Okay. So I wouldn't, if I was selling standard cod liver oil, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't encourage you to do a test either. The last thing I'd want you to know is that not much is happening. So when you've got a confidence to go, okay, we've got a legitimate, lab-based protocol. It's objective, it's verified. Take it and see where you're at, and then make your decision after that. And if you're okay, then why would you ever even need to buy anything? If you've got it nailed on, and I mean this, if you're nailed on, if you've got that right, brilliant. That test should just be your way to say, what I'm doing is right, I'm okay, and move on with your life. But then if it's not, and we know that for the vast majority of people, it's not, unfortunately, because of a whole ton of changes that's happened to the way we behave in our diet, well then, here's a really effective solution for you to be able to improve it. And then you almost get to validate through your own experience whether or not the change is taking place. And it should take place within 120 days, because that's the turnover rate of the red blood cells. So if we're going to bring about a change in that, because that's what we're measuring, it should happen for most people. You should get a significant change within that time. And that really, for me, was one of the first things that made me think differently about Zinzino, because I knew all about the Trondheim test, Trondheim University, the red blood cell test. And then I checked out the labs. They don't even know to this day, but I actually rung them up. And the labs check out, it's essentially double blind. And that's a nightmare. As a researcher now working on the other side, the fact that there's so much control over the anonymity of those tests is really hard, because I'd love to do all kinds of analysis and stuff, and you can't, because it's so well managed. And the blood test is the blood test. It's a look under the hood. Never mind what you tell me, what's happening to you physiologically, what's happening to your blood lipid profile. So the reason why Zinzino has the confidence to do what it does, and to start with the test, start here, see where you're at, it's because they know the product's great. They know the product will do what the product needs to do. But the important thing is that you are made aware of what your status is, and also whether or not any real effective change comes about. So the test is everything. And it's sometimes, if you go online now, there's a ton of things and places that are selling different types of tests, and I totally get that. But the feedback has to match the quality of the analysis. So it has to make you better informed. You have to be able to do what we're doing now. You need to be able to communicate with the researchers and the scientists who are working behind the scenes. You need to be able to be in front of them to make sense of it, because with all due respect, I've no doubt there are people on this call. I couldn't do a day in your life, couldn't do your job at all, no matter if you tripled the pay. It's just beyond my skill set. Yeah. So I respect that. And if I need your skill set, I will listen to you. And for the same virtue, when it comes to all this stuff, you guys need to be able to get front and center with people like myself and have a conversation about it to better understand it. So for me, the test is everything. And also, and I have to be careful how much I say here, Robert, really, but also the business model is everything for me as well, because nutrition and health should be based off a conversation and not a strap line in a shop. You can hide so much behind it, and you should be able to engage meaningfully and have conversations with the people that you are making purchases from, who are behind what is going on that you're receiving. I think of it, it's like we can take the world back 100 years, where you would know the farmer who'd grown the potatoes that were in your cupboard. You can have the conversation. you know, and you can decide whether or not you like them or trust them or believe them, you know, because you're upfront with them. And I think that's really important. I think in a world that has expanded and everything's become so anonymous from a business point of view, actually to go, no, we're going to have conversations direct with people, and we're going to build a community, and we're going to go on this journey together, because building the mental resilience required nowadays to focus on good health is challenging enough. Making the right decision is challenging enough. You need to be able to speak to the people who are behind it. And it all starts with that test. It's objective. It's got nothing to do with my opinion or your opinion. It's going to tell us what's going on under your hood, within your system, and we can start from there. So it's everything. The test is everything.
And I think that's the great thing about that, you know, the independence, okay, where it is somebody else, it's an independent laboratory, like you just mentioned, that you checked out like I did. I went, okay, I'm going to go. I just, you know, I've heard the story. I then spent 7 days in Norway, and I thought, I'm just going to do a few crazy things. And you just did exactly what I did. I made a phone call to see, does Zenzino own you? I asked all the questions. Are you affiliated with them? And it's just no, no, no. So that was a good thing to know that that line was drawn, and it was a totally independent laboratory to give an independent, because, hey, the sweet spot would be is have Vitus owned by Zenzino, and guess what? We'll tell everybody they need to take the oil. While having that independence, like I say, is, you know, well, why hasn't this test been out there for the Amiga industry? Why is it being able to do what it's done? And it's built a great story. It's a bit like the taxi industry, okay? There was a taxi industry, but then Uber came along and then fine-tuned and made it simplified and gave proof that they could do a one-stop solution by giving evidence of, hey, you use this app and you get access to all this. The same as what we've done. We've got access to the independent laboratory to get an independent, as you said, and I always use that expression, this is an engine. We've just got to, if you're going to run your car, you maintain your car. And the same thing is you take it in for an analysis all the time. And to me, the balance test is the beginning of the building block for us then to say, hey, let's now put you onto the oil that's going to, what I believe is going to fine tune your cellular structure to give the results that we're all looking for. And that's to give you a better wellness feeling internally of your body, or have your blood cells duplicate correctly. Talk to me about the blood cells, and then I'm going to go on about the products and just talk about each individual products that are in the health protocol. But I want to hear your opinion about cellular structures, because I believe that this is where a lot of immune functions are falling over, where they're really deteriorating badly. And because of us identifying as part of the test the immune system and where it's sitting, and where we can rebuild that structure reasonably quickly over 120 days, 240 days, 360 days on getting their system working correctly. Give me your opinion about how structures of the cells sit in the human body today and where we're going to go with it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that, Robert, it's actually, as I'm sure you're aware, really, that's like it's a huge question. And I don't want to delve too much into biochemistry and kind of cellular physiology. So I'm going to try and keep this in a way that we can all have a conversation about it, really. You know, stay true to a clearer message that I'd like to get across. So, and I'm aware of the fact that you guys might have heard Ida talk and Paul and other people, and you got to bear in mind that as researchers, we come at this from slightly different angles, but the science itself, the cellular science, the physiology is always the same, but we have kind of different interpretations of how we got there. What I encourage people to think is that, you know, we spent 7 million years evolving, 315,000 years as Homo sapiens. And throughout that period, we evolved from the planet and off the planet. And then what happened at least 100 years ago, although the foundations of this are a little bit longer than that, our intellect started to achieve great things for us, but it also started to get in the way and separate us a little bit from the land and from how we engage from a dietary point of view. And particularly if you go back now, and I always say to people, the trigger point was 1948, when we really see the onset of the processed food industry and the fast food industry and the takeaway industry. As a species, we started to feed less and less from the planet. And we started to make foods that replicate that. And don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. I know some people want to, cast bad guys, good guys. Some of that stuff's done wonders, but it's also created problems. And the reason we know that, and I have this argument with other researchers and people from the scientific community when they go, show us your evidence. And I say, what more evidence do you need than as an advancing society, medically, clinically, scientifically, we're getting sicker every year. We are getting more sick. Obesity, type 2 diabetes. These are the pandemics and epidemics that precede the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular disease. Not only is there more of it, but it happens to people younger now. And I like to tell people this. Pause with me a sec, folks. When I first worked in a big hospital, I remember I'd been there about 6 months, and news went around this hospital that there was a man on the cardiac ward who'd had a MI, and he was 33. And people were saying, wow, that's the youngest person we've ever had who's had an MI in our department. This was in 2001. Now people would just go, that's just normal. So it's not only more sickness, there's more sickness younger. And this is the problem. A lot of conditions that we say were related to old age are not anymore. They're affecting middle age and younger age. So all the evidence that you need, folks, if you're looking for objective empirical evidence, is despite our advances, we're getting sicker every single year. And what does this come down to? Well, there's multiple factors really, but let's get to the cell. You are a collection of cells. That's it. It's remarkable. Whether you want to call it a miracle, whatever you want to call it, it's phenomenal. It blows me away on a daily basis. I regularly pause and just go, this is just phenomenal. How did any of this ever come about? We are, as far as we know, we've got people looking around Mars at the minute, but we've been further out. And as far as we know, within the entire known universe at this point, we're the only intelligent life that functions and behaves the way we do. We are phenomenal. It's unbelievable. We're even rare on the planet. There's only us. Every other kind of species is really, really different. And we are a collection of billions of cells that come together. We all get a lifetime, however long that lifetime is, and then they separate. And it's remarkable. You are only as good as those cells are. That's what defines you.
Correct,
and
100%.
When we start to engage with practices and nutrition that starts to interfere with that and starts to have a negative impact on that, well then, and I don't want to be dramatic, but it's only time. You've lit the fuse. It's only time before that starts to create problems that you need to live with, cope with, deal with, address. And that leads people en masse into clinics, into hospitals, into medication. And we know this because statistically, as you get older, you're more likely to start to take more and more pharmaceuticals. And much of these will be to offset the other types for the side effects. And we've normalized that. And I keep wanting to scream to people, this is common. It's not normal. It's not normal. You know what I mean? We couldn't have got this far. Remember that 6 million year trajectory, 315,000 years? We've only been relying on this stuff for 5 minutes. This is not normal. Wake up. Okay. Yeah. And that comes into our epigenetics. So the quality of our cells. Now we know, and it's no real big mystery really, we know that when we look at what's been available to us throughout our evolutionary period, how we've consumed from the land and from the sea, that, we came from the sea, remember that, we crawled out the gloop, and this critical index of our omega-3/6 ratio, we've not evolved past that. We're still the same type of species that was knocking about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago. So we've got to recognize that we can't detach. We have detached, and it's come at the cost of our health because we've compromised our cellular health. And we need to look at how we can gravitate back to achieve that. But the problem we've got, and I'm going a bit off tangent now, is ecologically that's really hard to achieve now, because there's 7.8 billion people on the planet. 100
Correct.
years ago, there was only 2 billion people. So we've got to be really clever. We've got to be smart. We've got to make good use of modern technologies to achieve the balance we require. So if we look within the cell, and I want to clear something up as well, because this gets like kind of brandished about too much, and I want to kind of simplify it. Omega-6 is not the bad guy. Omega-6 can be really, really good. Omega-6 can be anti-inflammatory, okay? And omega-6 is not necessarily pro-inflammatory. The problem is we have way too much of it. Yeah. And our body likes balance. Homeostasis is the term we scientists use for the body's dynamic art of balance. And it's always trying to equalize. It's always, because everything's dynamic, everything's moving, so the body's trying to create balance, and this occurs within the cell. And we are now living with the legacy of generation after generation of a scarcity of those essential marine omega-3s, and we've evolved with them. It's a part of the process to optimize the cell, and when they become compromised, when they're absent, or when the ratio isn't right, we see really negative changes to the cell. We see the cell membrane, becomes really rigid. It's really difficult to get nutrients in, and it's really difficult to get toxins out. So you have the perfect environment, you have the perfect scenario for cellular death. You have the perfect environment for those cells now to lose their integrity and to stop functioning as they do. And that's when we zoom in. So this is what's happening at this micro level. And it's that times how many billion. And when we zoom out, that's where we see all the negative health consequences that are associated to what's happening at a cellular level. And that's why, I'm not really allowed to talk about testimonies. I love reading them. I'm part of the person who has to read them and vet them. I love reading those testimonies. I'm not allowed to comment on them. But when those testimonies come through and we see what people report in their experience and the change it makes to them and the photographs that go along with that, I always wish for a moment to go, I wish I wasn't on the scientific panel. I wish I was on that side and I could just say to people, look at this. This is the reality of what is happening when you take positive steps towards achieving this. And it really grates on me. There's an arrogance about the scientific community. They'll say, well, that's not in the Lancet. It's not a randomized controlled trial. And you go, no, but there's 500,000 people who are all showing you this. So you're going to ignore that because we didn't wrap it up as a research project and publish it in Nature. So it's really frustrating, isn't it? But we know this. And if you have a look across the research, there are certain areas where the cellular significance of this is profound, particularly when we look at aspects of cardiovascular health, when we look at factors around about skin. And a good friend, he was actually used to be a student of mine. He's gone on to be a professor now out in Canada, and he's dedicated the past 15 years of his life researching omega-3s. And his research is incredible. His name's Chris McGlory. If you get a chance, have a look at that guy's work. He was a great student and he's gone on to be a great academic. And he's really leading the charge now. We're looking at the factors of omega-3 with regards to our recovery from illness, recovery from disease, and also recovery from sports performance, and how it's a real factor in creating a physiological environment that is primed for that. And it makes complete sense, because if you're not right at a cellular level, given that's what we're made of, you can't be right at a gross anatomical level, because that's the stuff that you are. Your house is only as good as your bricks. Your house is only as good as the foundations it's built on. If they're compromised, the house isn't any good. If your cells are compromised, the structure is compromised. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we start to see that manifest in symptoms.
And look, and that's the incredible thing when you again, see those cells obviously working very, very well. But then when you see the poor cellular structure, when we see the balance test results, okay, and you can see, okay, these guys are really struggling. These guys as in the cellular structure. When you see them struggling, you know that we need to help them. And myself, coming 21 years in this industry of wellness professional, I just know that when I found the balance test and then found the balanced oil solution or the health protocol, when I saw that array of products and how they synergistically work together, how this company has got them marching in unison to get the results in the human structure, in the body, human cells, I was blown away. And just in 2 years, and remember those guys that are watching on Facebook, type in your results that you're getting personally. I want to list them up on Facebook. Again, it's got to be personal results. I don't want mums, dads, or whatever, but we just want to collect an arrayment of new testimonials of people's results in the last 90 days, because it's critical as people watch the replay that they can see the results of the everyday person using these products. So, Dr. Colin, let's talk about the balanced oil. I know we don't want to go too deep into it, but talk to me about, first up, the balanced oil and how it now works. We've done the test on day 1. Now we've got 120 days of soaking our body in this incredible, product, and then see a result in 120 days and then after. Talk to me about those first steps on what people should be doing.
I mean, the thing to get right. So what people naturally consider, and I understand this, is they'll say, well, if it's because I'm getting too much of the omega-6, then how can taking this amount every day of increased omega-3 offset all that? Because surely it should be relative to the amount of omega-6, and we've got to look at how much omega-6 a person has taken. And I always encourage people to think of, well, when it comes to that, consider the easy wins. There are things where there are places where omega-6 crops up that you'd probably be best just reducing. Okay, vegetable oil, those kind of things. That's a good strategy anyway when looking at our diet. But it's not about what we call, so to use the scientific terms, we have exogenous and endogenous. So what's outside and what's inside.
Yeah.
Now, the important thing is that the way we've evolved and what happens within the cellular activity is that when there is a sufficient amount of the omega-3 available, and I'm going to try and explain this just really as straightforward as I can, the omega-3 gets almost fair shout. There's enough of it. So the omega-3 is a bit like, this might go the wrong way. The omega-3 is a bit like having the SAS. You don't need thousands of army, because the SAS are so good, you just need a handful. Okay, yeah. So if the omega-3 SAS guys are in there, they're going to take control. Okay, and they're going to win that fight. They're going to go, right, I'm in the cell now, I'm active. What I need to do happens first. And so what we start to see is that because there is sufficient amounts of the omega-3, the ratio, the percentage of it, now the omega-3 starts to kick into action and starts to organize. Even the omega-6 and the omega-9 starts to organize those guys and say, right, we're here now, we're in charge, this is how we need to behave. So having the right amount of the omega-3 actually is a great way to almost conduct the omega-6 to do the positive role it should play as well. Yeah. And that's why I don't want people to think of omega-6 as a bad guy, because it really isn't. It's a polyunsaturated fatty acid. It's vital. So here we go. So omega-3 is in the cell, telling everyone what to do, going, right, this is how we look after this cell. And again, the cell has to, imagine the cell as a mini you. And if your skin was rigid and hard, you'd know there was something wrong. Your skin should be malleable, firm, pliable, moldable. If you couldn't get any nutrients into you and you couldn't get any toxins out, how long would you give yourself? You'd recognize you need to be heading towards the hospital pretty quick. Right. Imagine that at a cellular level. Well, what I like to think of is that the omega-3 is in there being your own little consultant, your own little medic who's going, I know how to look after this. Don't you worry. I'm going to organize these guys here to do their part. We're going to make that surface membrane nice and malleable. We're going to open up the hatch and bring all those nutrients in. And most importantly, when they've done their part, we're going to make sure that they exit the system. And that's the real, people talk about detoxification and they'll drink some cucumber water. No, no, no. Detoxification starts at a cellular level, okay? The cells need to be able to get the nutrients in and the toxins out. That's the best nutritional detoxification there is. So that's what's happening at a cellular level. So you start to take your balance oil. So why does the balance oil work where other oils don't? And you've probably heard, there it is, a little bottle of wonder. Why does it work when others don't? Largely because a huge part of what makes this up is the fact that the omega-3 is protected by the polyphenol. So we have a high antioxidant count within the extra virgin olive oil and even the uber oil that we provide now. And that polyphenol protects the omega-3, because when omega-3 is exposed, and a lot of the industry for a long, long time has really, made the oil and been focused on what you siphon off. The minute that becomes exposed to air, well, then it's starting to deteriorate. It's starting to go, I don't like using this word because it's a bit negative, but it is starting to go rancid, I guess. So you've got that issue. And then you consume it and your body hovering around its core body temperature isn't the best environment for it either. And that starts to take its toll and break it down even more. So what happens is you've got standard fish oil. The content's not great and it's exposed to air and it's going off. Then you put it into a warm environment that damages even more of it. So what gets through to the cell is a tiny, tiny amount, okay? Because in nature, you will see that the omega-3 is bound to a polyphenol. Nature's really clever, knows how to figure this stuff out. And that's why if we eat a really good piece of fatty fish, then we're getting really high integrity omega-3. The problem is it's got to be line caught. You don't want intensively agriculture, farmed fish. But anyway, so back to the oil. So the oil, there we go. We've got a really good source, ethically, ecologically sustainable omega-3. We've got that bound to a really, really high grade, high quality polyphenol. There's a bit of vitamin D in there, which we know in itself is a regulator for normal immune function. And also in this instance, therefore, is starting to also send coding around the rest of the system with regards to positive cellular behavior. So really, that little bottle of genius that's there, within the amount is you are getting the required dosage to bring about the required percentage to have sufficient omega-3 to take charge and organize what needs to go on. Within that, you've got a high antioxidant profile, which in itself is anti-inflammatory. So it's starting to help to calm down the system. And those two are spearheading and bringing along with it this shot of vitamin D that's going to go in there and start to help the body with regards to its management and production of B cells and T cells to make sure the whole system is going, immune system working as it should do, cellular system becoming optimized, and the body starts to undergo really consistent positive changes. As long as we're consistent, the art of this and the beauty of this relies on taking it daily so that we're getting sufficient amounts, because most of the guidelines that are out there are still way too low. They are still too, and they're also based off this notion that if you eat fish once or twice a week, then that's going to be sufficient. One, you can't quantify the nutrient density of the fish, so that's spurious at best. And secondly, if we're talking about daily ratios that we need to have, then consuming something once or twice a week clearly isn't going to hit that mark. The oil, and Robert, you might have heard me say this before. Why do I like the oil so much? Because it's just really good quality food. That's what it is. It's not some kind of NASA wonder, concoction. It's really good food. That's what it is. When people say, I've got this, should I take it? I say, will your doctor let you eat fresh salmon and have olive oil? If they say, yeah, then you're good to go. Has your doctor said to you, don't dream of eating fresh salmon and don't go anywhere near extra virgin olive oil? Yeah. If they said that to you, no, then you're okay. Take the balance oil. You're going to be better off. Yeah.
Look, That's the key, and people have got to understand that it is really that simple at the end of the day. Now, guys, I've just opened the chat up, okay, for you. I would like your comments, and it's got to be personal testimony. Again, and I normally don't turn on chat on these Zoom calls, okay? But I want to capture this moment because it's a very special call for us having Dr. Colin on this call in Asia Pacific. Throw in your personal testimonies there. No other chat apart from testimonies, then I'll turn it off. Dr. Colin, I want to move on to the next product, okay, because we've got about another 6 minutes together. Xenobiotics, okay? Xenobiotics, talk to me about this amazing product. So first up, we've spoken about, obviously, the balanced soil coupled along with xenobiotics, and then as the baseline, the balance test. Let's talk about that for a minute or two.
Xenobiotic, it's an interesting one, really, because you don't realize that your stomach is the center of your universe until it's not functioning properly, until you've got some kind of malabsorption issue, some kind of discomfort. And again, you know, what surprises me is, you know, how people normalize discomfort and how people will say to themselves, oh, well, I'm getting older. That's just a part, you know, yeah, I'll get a bit of IBS and, you know, I'll struggle with this. And they normalize it. And again, you feel like screaming and going, that if that was normal, we wouldn't still be here. Okay. So Xenobiotic is really, really clever product in as much as it's such a straightforward product. So with Xenobiotic, what we're doing is we are going in there with those essential dietary fibers, and the Xenobiotic Plus is all naturally derived. And that's important because we know that naturally derived fibers interact with the stomach and the gut biome and the microbiome in an entirely different way to synthetic fibers. You know, people tried the synthetic fibers approach, had a little bit of benefit. Those natural fibers go in there, and guess what? All that evolution stuff, the body knowing what it needs, boom, and you start to optimize the environment. So you're not only as good as what you eat, more importantly, you're only as healthy as what you absorb. Think of it that way. You know, if your system, if your stomach can't effectively absorb, take advantage of the nutrients that you're putting in there, then that's the first level of compromise. You know, and we know, you know, this isn't scandalous to say, we know there are things that we consume that damage the gut biome. For instance, refined sugars. The gut biome hates it, really hates it, goes in there and wreaks havoc. That's not a controversial thing to say. It's just a fact. You know, the reason why I encourage people to reduce their intake of carbonated drinks, and ideally not take them at all, but, you know, is because it causes those issues within the gut biome. You are compromising your absorption of other foods and nutrients. So if your diet's really, really good, whole fresh food, you know, grass-fed beef, you know, wild salmon, but you're putting refined sugar in there every single day, and this is just one example, then you're damaging the environment and you're not getting the most out of those nutrients. Okay, that's just a fact. Xenobiotic is a way of going in and saying, let's feed that microbiome. Let's look after the environment. You know, the way, quite rightly right now, Robert, we're all switched on going, we need to look after the place we live in. It's the only one we've got. And we're not moving to Mars anytime soon. No. It's the same for your stomach. People have gone, wow, I need to look after that. Because when I look after that environment, that tropical environment that's in there, it looks after me. And that's what Xenobiotic does. You got your beta glucans in there, you got those natural dietary fibers, and it's really going in and it's feeding the parts of the system that need to be fed in order for them to look after the other parts of the system, to absorb those foods and bring them in. So Xenobiotic is a real kind of easy. I mean, guys, watch. If you don't know about this until now, listen to this part of what I say. You are going to see more of the health narrative over the next 10 years focus on prebiotics and probiotics than ever before. It's really going to go down that way because we're starting to identify where those problems start and commence from. We're also going to see, because it's already emerging, more and more of the conversation and the dialogue around our nutrition on the omegas, the omega-3 and the cell ratio balance, because it's starting to make it to the front line. And I promise you folks, because I've been in this game long enough, I've seen this from way back, from 20 years back, the things that started 25 years ago. We were discussing the fact that the fact was people were just eating far too many carbohydrates. It wasn't the carbohydrates were bad, people were just eating too many of them. It took about 10 years for that to reach the front line. And then it's taken about another 15 years for people to go, right then, so carbohydrates aren't bad, I just can't eat so much of them. I promise you now, the next 10 years is going to be dominated by the gut biome and by the omegas, because that information now, there's a critical mass in the research and it's starting to make its headway through. So to me, you know, and personally as well, although that's got nothing to do with it, anecdotally, to me, the products that I take every single day are my balance oil in the morning, my Protect, and my Xenobiotic. Every single day. They're like they're a given. That's my little health protocol. That's what I do, because I know that within that I'm taking care of that environment. I'm making sure that all the, you know, I want to control the notion of what happens with regards to those blood sugar spikes after we consume a meal. That's a normal response. But when those things get out of hand, this is where we start to have, particularly as we get older, this can influence our insulin resistance. You know, so I want to make sure that that's all okay. Just looking after it, just doing the best that I can. So it's optimizing your gut health. It's helping to manage those insulin spikes. It's feeding that microfauna, that gut fauna, that microbiome, and making sure the center of your physiological, your human universe is ready to do everything else it needs to do. And again, you know, to put it bluntly, it's going to help with the normalization of your bowel function.
Fantastic. Absolutely great feedback for anybody. Just 1 minute each as we close out this call, okay? Let's talk about quickly the Extend, okay, and Viva Plus. Two outstanding products. And like you just said, do you have to consume all the products? No, you don't. You get the products that work for your cellular structure, but knowing with Zenzino products, they all work synergistically together. And I think that's the key that we want to make sure everybody understands. And I've been watching some of the wellness professionals comment on this chat line and also on the social media lines. And some of the results they're just saying that they're saying from themselves, and also that they've seen in practice is outstanding with the Zenzino test, number one, which gives them a device and a starting point, then the balanced oils, followed by Xenobiotics. And like you just said, Protect, Extend, and Viva as a complement to the rest of, you know, the nutritional range that people are taking on a daily basis. Give me 1 minute each on those as we close out, Dr. Colin.
Extend is phenomenal. When I travel, I take Extend and I take it every day. If my training, like my exercise training, I've got an Ironman this year, I'll start to rely on Extend more. Extend is a way of saying, have I had sufficient amount of micronutrients in my diet today? Yes. Everything else I do then with regards to the structure of my diet is a win, because I've already covered that base. Extend is probably, other than balance oil, is probably my favorite product. It really is. Extend is one of those really clever, genius products, covers a base, answers a question. Have I taken in enough micronutrients today? Yes. Boom, move on. So Extend, I can't endorse that enough. And I use it strategically when my body's under greater stress and particularly if I'm traveling. Viva is one of those products that, you know, we're dealing with a global phenomenon of people with compromised sleep, because people are on the go every day. 5,000 messages hitting your brain every single day, emails, messages, responses, go, go, go. So people are finding it hard to relax, to get neurologically, to calm the system down and get ready to go to sleep. And that's where Viva comes into its own. It's again, it's a product aimed towards a genuine problem that creates a solution. Viva is a bit more, whereas I'm confident that Protect and Extend just benefit everyone. Viva is one of those ones that, you know, for some people, it works tremendously. And for other people, they get less of an effect, but some of an effect. And I would encourage people to try it, particularly where I've seen it work best are the ones who genuinely have a sleep issue. If they're having a sleep issue, guess what? They're the ones who typically see that it works best. But it's got saffron in there. It's going to help to calm that system down and give you the opportunity to be more successful with sleep. And if not, at least put you in a more relaxed state. And this is important. People have lost the art of rest in the 21st century. So that's the way I'd sum it up. Extend is your best friend. It really is. It's that hit that says, well, I've hit my, it's there. And everything I put on top of that puts me in a winning position with regards to my diet.
Outstanding information, Dr. Colin. Again, you know, it's just great. And guys, keep the feed going. And don't forget to go up to social media, up to any of the team sites, Team Zenzino official, and leave your comments on there, because it's very important that people get to see what's happening with this incredible company and the incredible science that this company's got based, you know, and that's what I want to get. I want to scream from the top of the roofs, okay? Get yourself tested. The Zenzino Balance test is so critical for you to be taken first. That is the first step to the success of the health being repaired or your body being, you know, taken on a new journey within your health rights. Dr. Colin, I want to talk about 1 minute, okay, on brand ambassadors or people that are consuming it at a high performance level. You are one of those people in the wellness professional field that looks after, well, you know, those high performance people. You've seen a lot of people in the last 120 days, last 6 months you've been involved with the company. Just let the wellness professionals on the line hear some of the things you've seen about rebuilding of the structure, okay, with wellness professionals, because there's a lot of sporting people now saying, is this the real deal? Now, you've just spoken to the general public. Can we just focus for 1 minute as we close out about the sporting fraternity?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest questions I get, because I've got a background in working in elite and professional sport. So naturally, those guys reach out and they know what I'm doing now. And they say, Col, what does this do? Does it really do it? And so over the past 2 months alone, I've had numerous conversations, and we're starting to get a real big buy-in from a lot of Premiership football clubs, from a lot of the guys over here who are a part of Team GB and on the Olympic pathway, because they're always looking for that 1% margin. What's going to make me recover that bit better? It all adds to that environment of performance and care and recovery. And again, as I've already said, there is a real groundswell of research in the area of where these omegas fit within recovery. And remember, guys, if you're on here, if you're an athlete or you're a coach, you know, we've all spent our time in the trench. Here's the fact: you are only as good as you recover. Everything is based on our recovery strategy. We know how to apply exercise stimulus. We know how to do the training. There's not really much left to be discovered in that area. We're all focused on how we can recover better. Because if I can recover better, I can be faster. I can go further, faster, stronger, quicker. I can recover quicker. I can train again better. And every training day is an opportunity to improve. So within that, we're seeing massive buy-in. One of the first guys who I used as a bit of a test for Zenzino, who is a GB skier over here, phenomenal guy, been tremendously successful. He's not an ambassador yet, so he wouldn't like me to say his name, but guy, he's just won competitions in the last few months. And the difference it's made, you know, he's a more senior athlete. The difference is made to his participation and being able to train more consecutively back-to-back days. But yeah, it's no surprise to me that the amount of interest we are now getting, the conversations we're having from rugby clubs, football clubs, those Olympic guys, because it's all about recovering. And you cannot recover if your cells don't recover. Because I'll go right back to what I said. That's what we are. So we've looked at other factors of recovery in the past, and now that more nuanced, high-tech look with regards to, well, how can we better care, maintain, and recover our athletes has led people quite naturally to this.
Fantastic, Dr. Colin. Again, I thank you for your time, energy, and all the effort you're putting into helping us here at Zenzino to spread the incredible world. Remembering, guys, it's test-based nutrition. It's all about this incredible device and then sharing with the incredible balance store and the array of products that are available. Dr. Colin, any closing comments as we close out the call in the next 30 seconds? Just
thank you. That's all I can say. Thanks for listening. I really I look forward to spending more and more time with you guys and being able to share more information. And I guess the last thing I will say is we're not a company that's standing still. We're a company that is taking stock and moving forward with new product ideas, but more importantly, wanting to do what we already do well, even better. So we're only going in one direction, and we're hoping as many people come with us.
Fantastic, Dr. Colin. Appreciate you so much. And guys, don't forget, jump up to the social media platforms, drop your information in there, share this invaluable information. We've got to go. We're an army of people that need to get out there and share what this message is about. It is up to us to take stock of this global pandemic and help our fellow friends out. Dr. Colin, thank you so much. Look forward to speaking to you in person very soon around the world, okay? But again, I'd love to have you back in the next 90 days to just have a chat with us in Asia Pacific. Appreciate your time, and let's catch up real soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robert. Best to everyone. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you all. Thanks, guys. Okay, bye-bye, guys.